Recording as well.
Let's do it.
All right, the floor is all yours.
All right, awesome. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this evening. So today we'll be doing a Salesforce Industry Cloud Power Hour. If you weren't able to make it to TrailblazerDX, me and Ashish presented there on a couple industry cloud topics, and we're bringing the presentations to you guys. So you'll be able to catch up on all of that great content. We are Salesforce employees, so please make your purchasing decisions based on what's in the product today, not based on what's on the roadmap. So to do some quick introductions before we jump into the content, let me introduce myself first. So my name is Georgii. I'm a senior program architect specializing in communications cloud at Salesforce based in Singapore. The name is pronounced Georgii, not Georgie, like with the soft G. It's a tough one. I'm a certified technical architect, or a CTA. This is a picture of me after I passed my CTA back in December of last year. I printed it out on like a 1 meter poster board and got a nice picture there. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 8 years now. I started at a customer, moved to an SI, then joined an ISV, specifically Vlocity, and then through the Vlocity acquisition, I'm now part of Salesforce as of 2 years ago. I've been involved in 8 communications cloud implementations. I'm 36x Salesforce certified, and then in terms of community events, I like to be active in the community, present at user groups like this one, and I co-founded the Benelux CTA study group. Here's one of our first meetups when Carl Brundage in the background joined us virtually, and I also co-founded the Moscow developer user group. Here was our very first in-person meetup a couple of years ago, and I will hand it off to Ashish.
Thanks, Georgii. So maybe if there's some animation, you can just keep clicking here, okay? Yeah, all right. So I'm originally actually from Jaipur and right now living in Melbourne. So this was a bit of journey for me, all the way from Jaipur to Melbourne. I shifted here around 10 years ago. And since then, I'm working in Melbourne. I have overall 13 years of industry experience with around 6 years in Salesforce. And I've got around 17 Salesforce certifications. And in last 13 years, I've worked on multiple implementations, transformations, and I've kind of got some expertise on the areas of product modeling, quote and order capture, and order management areas. And all of these become the core areas of Velocity or Salesforce Industries as well. So that's why I like this product as well. So I'll hand it over back to Georgii. He will take us through his presentation, and then I'll take it back.
Cool. So I'm do a quick introduction to Industry Cloud and Omni Studio for those of you that may be working on a sales or service cloud implementation. If you don't know what Industry Cloud is, we'll give you a quick context there. Then I'll go through customer modeling with an industry focus. So in this session, we'll understand how do we model customers in communications, media, and energy clouds. Ashish will do a session on successful product lifecycle management in Industry Cloud. So both of these sessions will be like 20 to 25 minutes. We'll leave about 5 minutes for questions after each one. And then we'll close off with some enablement resources. So if you want to learn more about Industry Cloud, Omni Studio, where you can learn about that. And finally, we'll be giving away certification vouchers, and it will be based on a Kahoot quiz where the questions will be based on the content that we go over. So make sure you're paying attention so that you can get certified, hopefully on one of the Industry Cloud or Omni Studio certifications, but I'll leave it up to you. All right, so let's jump in. So a quick context on Industry Cloud. I mentioned that I joined Vlocity about 4 years ago, and Vlocity was acquired by Salesforce and is now part of 6 industry clouds in Salesforce. So here in this diagram, around the circle here, we have all of the different industries that are available as part of Industry Cloud. And then highlighted in blue are the ones that are that were part of former Vlocity. So these 6 are part of former Vlocity. And then the ones that are checkmarked here are Media and Energy and Utilities Cloud. Today's session will be focused on these, and you'll understand as we go through the session, why is it these 3? What is the connection between them? And just to give a bit more flavor, what exactly is Industry Cloud? I mentioned the word Omni Studio. What is that? How does it differ from Sales or Service Cloud? Just to give some context, here is the solution map for communications cloud. The other industries, you can think of them as kind of similar to this, but with different components involved. And I'll walk you through a couple of the key things. So at the bottom of the diagram, industry cloud is built on top of the Salesforce Lightning platform, built on top of Sales and Service Cloud, uses a lot of the same objects and extends them. And then in the middle here, this is really the core industry cloud piece. So the industry clouds contain Omni Studio. This is a digital interaction platform that helps create, digital UIs based on flex cards or Omni scripts that, are guided selling processes and that sort of thing. They help you create digital friendly UIs for your internal customers and external customers. The next piece is the industry data model. So the session that I'll be talking about will focus on this. We'll understand the customer model for communications, media, and energy. And then over here, we have the different functional modules. So we have enterprise product catalog, configure price quote or CPQ, and quite a few other functional modules as well. I'll have some links in the enablement if you're interested in deep diving into some of these. And Ashish's session will be focused on EPC or enterprise product catalog, specifically kind of how we deploy products. Then on top of that, we can integrate into the other Salesforce products in the ecosystem as well. So you can connect in Marketing Cloud, Tableau CRM, B2C Commerce Cloud, Communities, and all of the great partners that a lot of you are on this call help us actually deliver this for our customers. So the key idea is, it builds on top of what's there in the platform, generally comes with the data model, generally comes with Omni Studio, and then generally comes with some functional components that are relevant for that industry. So I hope that gave you a bit of quick context in case you weren't familiar with Industry Cloud at all. And let's jump into the topics for today. So I'll be talking about customer modeling with an industry focus. We saw the forward-looking statement again. So I'll give another quick introduction to Industry Cloud. We'll talk about the service-centric industries. I mentioned communications, media, and energy and utility cloud a few times, so we'll understand what those have in common. We'll quickly go through the sales and service cloud customer data model that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Then we'll understand how the communications, media, and energy customer data model build on top of that and what's involved there. We'll map it to an example customer structure, and then we'll close with the key takeaways. Okay, so I mentioned that a lot of the 6 industry clouds that were formerly part of Vlocity are now part of Salesforce Industries. Here are all of the different industry clouds that we have today. We'll be focusing on these 3: communications, media, and energy and utilities. You might be thinking, these are 3 different industries seemingly that don't really have that much connection. What is the common thread behind them? Why are they kind of grouped together? We'll understand that in just a moment. So the idea is that all 3 of these, the core products that they sell are very much focused on services. So in case you're not familiar with these industries, let me give a bit of example so you understand what it is. So when we talk about communications, this is often called telco or telecommunications. This is the mobile service that all of you have on your mobile phone. This is the internet service that all of you are using to connect to this call. These are, the TV services that you probably use in your home. In the media side, we have streaming services like Spotify, Netflix, that sort of thing. Advertising, you can imagine, Google, AdWords, that sort of thing. Gaming, this could be something like World of Warcraft, that falls under media. And then energy and utilities, I think this is pretty obvious, but like the electricity, heating, gas, all of the utilities you use for your home or your office to, have it be livable. So you might notice the word service over and over here. That's exactly the point. The common thread behind all 3 of these is that the core product that they sell is indeed a service rather than a tangible good. So in telco, often when you buy a mobile subscription, like your phone service, often you'll buy a mobile device with it. So, an iPhone or a Samsung device, but usually that's not the core thing that company is selling you. The core thing that they're selling you is the service, right? So the common thread behind all of these is that the core product is that intangible service or subscription. And so, okay, I've been talking about products, different industries. How does that tie to customer modeling? When we think about a customer, we need to think about a customer and their services. So if we talk about a service, the three things that we care about in this context are who owns that service, who uses that service, and who pays for it. So to give an example, let's say that you have a child. I don't personally, but let's imagine that I did. And the family is the one that owns the child's mobile service. The child is the one that uses it, but maybe I'm the one that's paying for it. So we can see that for this service, we're representing three different parties doing three different things. One party is the owner, one party is the user, one party is the payer. And it's very important to have these three things. Sometimes all three of these could be the same. Sometimes these could be different parties. So that's kind of the core thing. You can see that the products that we're selling, the services, we care about who is involved there, meaning the customer. So let's recap the Sales and Service Cloud customer model really quick. I'm sure this is familiar to a lot of you, but we'll go through it briefly. So the core thing is the account. The account represents typically a business that we're doing business with. So in the context of a telecommunications company, this could be a business that we're doing that we're selling products to. This could be a consumer that we're selling products to. Often this would be a business. And then we have contacts. Contacts are individuals that work at that business that we're interested in. So these could be people that we're potentially selling to, maybe service people, that sort of thing. Then in the B2C context, we have something called person accounts. So this is kind of a tight linking between a account and a contact when the entity that we're doing business with, or the account, is really the same as the contact or the person that's involved. And in the B2C context, the entity that we're doing business with is that individual, is the account, is the contact. So this becomes one thing. Then we can have the contact associated to different accounts. So maybe let's take the example of Gaurav. Gaurav works for one of our great partners. He would be a contact under the account of that partner. And then he is also a partner of Salesforce. So he also has a connection to Salesforce, even though he's not directly an employee of Salesforce. So we can represent that via what's called an account contact relationship. And for those of you that have done the sharing and visibility architect, you know that this can drive the sharing sets that are used to grant access to records for our Experience Cloud users. Then we have assets. So assets typically represent the things that belong to the entity that we're doing business with. So this could be an example of this could be the laptop that you use for your employer. That would be an asset that they own that you use. This could be maybe your work phone. That's also an asset or a product that you have an instance of, you use. It belongs to your account. And the key thing to think about here is, coming back to what I was saying previously, in this case, the asset is just related specifically to one account. What if, based on what I just said, we have a different person that owns it, different person that uses it, different payer? How would we represent those things? So just keep that question top of mind. And the last thing here is that we have orders or order items as well. So orders are kind of the mechanism of how we sell things to that entity. So the order could be, selling work laptops to some employer that will eventually become assets. So basically the reason why I put them here is that our order or order items will eventually become our assets. And we care about those because they ultimately tie into the customer. And there is a lot more to the data model. I'm sure you know a lot of other objects here as well. We don't have time to go over them today, but check out architects.salesforce.com where you have full data models of Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, a bunch of other things. So if you're interested in deep diving on this, take a look at those. Great resource. Okay, so now that we have the context of the sales and service customer model, let's go through how in communications, media, and energy cloud, those are represented. First, we'll start with a B2C customer. So the core thing that we start with, again, is an account. The difference here is that we have record types within comms, media, and energy to represent different types of accounts. So the first one that we start with is for B2C customers. They're represented by the record type called consumer account. So that would be what we start off with first. Maybe in a very simple example, if you're the customer, you're the one using the service, you're the one paying for it, we would just have that consumer account and that's it. But let's say that I have I have two homes, maybe a home in the city that I normally live in, and then a summer home that I spend some time in the summer at. How would we represent the fact that, I have two places where I'm getting services? Maybe I have, internet at both places, or maybe I have electricity at both places. How would we represent that from a customer perspective? What we do there is that we have another record type called service account. Again, this is a record type of the account object, and here we connect that service account to the consumer account via the parent account lookup. So basically, again, this lets us represent that there are different places, different places that our services are provisioned at. And then from the billing perspective, let's say that I also have multiple things. Maybe my wife is paying for some of them, I'm paying for some of them. How do we represent, different entities paying for these things? Similarly to service accounts, we have something called billing account that lets us do exactly that. So the billing accounts, again, are related to the consumer account via the parent account lookup, and we use the account hierarchy feature to keep all of these things connected together. So again, that lets us represent basically different payers that are associated to the customer. Then we have the contacts. Again, the contacts are the same thing that we saw with the Sales and Service Cloud data model. This lets our customers self-service via Experience Cloud. Nothing really unique here. These would generally point to these would be children under the consumer account. Then we have the account contact relationships. These can connect the contact to the specific billing or service accounts, and depending on how you want to set up your sharing and visibility, maybe you want it to be driven by the billing or service accounts. The account contact relationship lets us have that connection to then create sharing sets to drive the visibility. And the last piece here is the assets. So in the context of comms, media, and energy, the assets represent our services. We don't have a custom services object that's represented by the asset. And the asset, you'll notice it has 3 lookups to different things. So it has a lookup to the consumer account, the service account, and the billing account. There are 3 lookups to different accounts. So there's a lookup for the user, which is the service account, a lookup for the payer, which is the billing account, and then a lookup for the owner, which is the parent account. And again, depending on your use case, if you have something simple where you just have mobile service for one person, they're using it, they're paying for it, all 3 of these lookups would point to the same account. If you have something more complex, then these 3 lookups would point to different accounts. And again, our assets are ultimately generated from orders and the order items. So our order will contain order items. The order items will get fulfilled and eventually end up as assets. So orders basically follow the same pattern that we have with the assets, and they point to their direct children under the consumer account. And then we also have, on the order items, we also have lookups to the service account and billing account, so you can consider them just like the asset. So one thing you might be noticing here is, previously I said that in Sales and Service Cloud, we have person accounts representing B2C customers. In this diagram, we don't have person accounts. So the key thing is that in Comms, Media, and Energy Cloud, we do not use person accounts. And the reason for that is if we go back here, we can see that here we're using the account hierarchy to link the consumer account to the service account and billing account. So this arrow is basically account hierarchy. Person accounts do not support account hierarchy. They cannot be the parent of another account, and a person account cannot have a parent. Thus, this kind of model would be impossible with person accounts, and that's why we do not use them. So just remember that. Comms, media, and energy, no person accounts. Okay, so now we understand the B2C model. Let's look at the B2B model. We'll see quite a lot of similarities, actually. So to start with, instead of the consumer account for representing B2C, we use a business account for representing B2B. And again, this is just a record type of the account object. Oftentimes in a B2B model, we will have a hierarchy of accounts on top. So maybe if our customer is Coca-Cola, maybe we have the Coca-Cola India legal entity, which reports up to Coca-Cola APAC, which reports up to Coca-Cola Global, there we would have a 3-level hierarchy of the business accounts. So this is the same feature that we know and love from Sales and Service Cloud. Then typically underneath the most granular service account, we would have different service and billing accounts. This could represent something like, different departments. Maybe you have the sales department, the service department. Underneath those, we break them down more granularly, and we want that to be able to represent, how we bill different sets of assets, who's using the different sets of assets. Again, this is the same thing that we saw in B2C, but we would typically have more service and more billing accounts, and potentially a hierarchy of them as well. We have the contacts, exactly the same thing. This can help drive the self-service in Experience Cloud. And finally, we have the assets. So same deal here. The assets would have an owner, a user, and a payer. The difference here is that the assets, typically the parent account would be the service account. The reason for that is if you think from a B2C perspective, a B2B perspective, if we had all of the assets pointing up directly to the business account, we would have skew. So if you've done the data architecture cert, you're familiar with parent skew when we have 10,000 or more child records under the same parent. And in a B2B context, it would, you would quite quickly have 10,000 or more child assets under the same business account. So putting them under a more granular service account helps us avoid that skew, avoid record locking issues, and avoid performance issues. And kind of same thing on the order and order items. So the order would be, it's recommended to have the order have a parent of the service account to avoid skew. And then there would be an owner account representing that it's linked to that granular business account. And then if we just think about this further, for a thought experiment, think about how we would represent the linkage of a B2B customer to the B2C customer. So let's say I'm a B2C customer, I have a family account. I'm also an employee of Salesforce, so I'm also represented in a B2B model. How would we connect me as a contact or me as a person to my B2C customer, like me as a customer from a B2C perspective, and then me as a customer from a B2B perspective? It would be that account contact relationship that we saw that can then do that linkage of my B2C customer, or sorry, B2C contact to my B2B account, service account, for example, and then I would be a contact under my B2C consumer account. So let's make this a bit more concrete with an example. So let's say that we have a family of 4. So we have Ben, Ross, Ruth, Ava. Let's say that they have 2 places. They have an apartment in the city and then a home in the country. They have a bunch of different services. They have internet at one place, internet, TV, and mobile as a triple play bundle in another place. And then everyone also has their own mobile handsets. And we're also paying for it via 3 different ways. So let's put a little bit more structure on this before we map it to the data model. So let's take each person and talk about, what are they using and what are they paying for? So let's say that we have Ruth. Ruth is the one that first signs up for the services. She orders a triple play bundle of internet, TV, and mobile. The internet and TV are provisioned at their apartment in the city, and then she's paying for all of those services. Then we have Ross. Ross ordered internet and mobile. The internet is provisioned at their home in the country. We have Ben. Ben has his own mobile service. And then Ross is paying for his and Ben's services. And then we have Ava. Maybe Ava went out to university recently. She has her own mobile service and she is paying for her own service, but she's still part of the family account. So the way we would map this is we first start off with Ruth here. So Ruth would have a household consumer account. So this would be the very first account that's generated when she signs up for the service. She would have a few asset records representing the different services that would all point to that consumer account. And because she's the one using it, she's the one owning it, she's the one paying for it, we would just have all 3 of those lookups pointing to this account. And then she would also have a contact record here so that she can access her account, look at her bills, raise cases, and so on via Experience Cloud. Then let's talk about Ben. So Ben then signs up. He has the mobile and internet assets here. They will be owned by the consumer account because that's the family account. We would introduce 2 service accounts for those 2 different services because they're separated here, and then they're paid for together by Ben's billing account. So here we introduce 2 new accounts, 2 service accounts here, a billing account here, and they're children of this household consumer account. And then the asset has lookups to all 3 of these things. Then we take Ross, and then Ben also has a contact, so he can log into Experience Cloud as well. Then we take Ross. So Ross also has a contact here. Ross has a single mobile asset. That mobile asset is being paid for by Ben. So it's pointing to that existing Ben billing account. We create a new service account for Ross's service, and then everything is tied to that household consumer account. And then finally, we have Ava. Ava has her own mobile asset. She is paying for it, so we have a new billing account. She's using it. We have a new service account, and all of that is pointing up to the household consumer account, and she has her own contact to log into Experience Cloud. So here in this example, we saw, how we can use this account hierarchy, the consumer account, billing account, service account, to represent who's paying for all of these services, who's using them, who's owning them. We have all of that flexibility there. And as a thought experiment, just think about, if Ross and Ruth are both working for some company, how could we connect them potentially to their company's B2B customer? And this is just one example. Depending on your customer's use case, maybe you take this a bit differently. Maybe we always, instead of having a single account here, we always create 3 accounts up front, a consumer, business, service account. Potentially you might have that for regulatory reasons. Maybe another thing that we could do is, rather than creating a service account for the mobile assets, we create that as a consumer account, so that if Ava decides that she wants to split off from the family account into her own account, having her as a consumer account allows us to do that. So you can tweak everything that I just showed here. This is just an example, a kind of starting point that you would look at and match to your requirements. So I won't have time to deep dive into a lot of other things, but there are quite a lot of other things involved in the communications, media, and energy data models, and some things for the customer model as well. I'll just highlight a few of them here. So we have affinity groups. This is represented in the household object, but this is not to be confused with a household account that we would use, the consumer account that I just mentioned, to represent a household of people. The idea behind this is, let's say that we have a group of people that belongs to the same sports club, or are members of or are students living in the same apartment. They're not actually connected by the same family account or family consumer account, but we want to know that they're connected together, that they belong to the same sports club, they live in the same apartment, something like that. Affinity group or household objects lets us store that, so that we can use it potentially for marketing purposes or other things. There's something else that's commonly asked about, the party model. This allows for account to account and contact to contact relationships. Oftentimes, the account contact relationship object that I was talking about is sufficient here, and there isn't a need for party model. So just consider, based on your use case, if you really need this, or if account contact relationship is sufficient. There's also the subscription object. This is kind of a grouping mechanism for assets, where the grouping should be different than the service account. So maybe you want to know that these 3 services are all connected by the same subscription. That subscription was originally created in, 2020. We disconnect some assets, create some new assets, subscribe to new services. We want to know that ultimately all of those things are tied to the same subscription. That's where we bring in the subscription object. And finally, in the energy and utilities cloud, we can represent addresses where service is provided, and utility meters like an energy meter via the premises and service point objects. So there's a lot more involved than I was able to cover here, but I think this will give you a flavor of what's there. So let's go to the key takeaways. What did we learn here? The key thing here is that the industry data models are built on the foundation of Sales and Service Cloud. For those of you that are going for your data architecture cert or other architecture certs, what I would highly recommend is just look at a lot of the industry data models. The patterns that you see here, although they're specific to some industry, I think that they would apply to other industries and other use cases as well. You know, what I just mentioned about some kind of products that have an owner, a user, a payer, think about an Amazon or e-commerce scenario where you're purchasing something. You know, in Amazon, you can choose your kind of shipping addresses, your credit cards. That's pretty similar to what we just described in today's session, right? Even though that's e-commerce, fast-moving consumer goods, which is really a different industry, the patterns that we learned today, you know, can apply there. And also, customers are more than just an account and contact. We really need to think about, you know, what products does that customer own, which are often assets, and that also defines the customer themselves. And, you know, the key thing that I kept mentioning over and over is the account hierarchies. They're very powerful. We use it over and over for the owner, user, and payer. And finally, when you're doing any kind of design, whether it's data model or something else, always think about the limitations. Here in Sales and Service Cloud, we have a great feature called person accounts. It you know, is a great feature. It should be used when it makes sense. In comms, media, energy, because of the unique things about this industry, the limitation around account hierarchies doesn't fit, and we don't use it. So don't just try and squeeze something into the solution because it feels like that should be it. Really think about what are the limitations there and consider them. So that was it for today's session. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and at the end of the slides, we'll have some additional enablement resources if you want to learn more. So we do have, we can take a couple minutes here for questions. Were there any in the chat?
Yeah, I can read those out to you, Georgii. So first question is by Prakash: can a service account and billing account be different than the consumer account?
Yes, so let me go back to this thing. So the idea behind this model that we saw here is that in a simple scenario where it's the same entity is the owner of the service, the user of the service, the payer of the service, we don't need 3 different account records. We can just have one account, which is the consumer account. If those are 3 different things, like here we have the family account, a service account, and a different billing account, then we split them out into 3 things. And then in this scenario, we reused a different billing account of a different person. So that's really the power. You introduce a new record if you need it. If you need it to represent something else, you reuse an existing record if you don't.
Yeah. And then there's a follow-up question, which I think is related by Ankur. If I'm a business owner having a business account, can I link to a customer account?
Yeah, so you could use account-to-account relationships there. There's an account relationship object. You could also consider using the account contact relationship to instead link you as a contact to your business or consumer account. Depends on exactly what you're trying to accomplish via that relationship.
And then there's a question from Dinesh. If they decide to move their apartment triple play service to the country home, how will that be handled?
Yeah, so a move is represented in industry CPQ as what's called a MACD, or move, add, change, delete, disconnect order, which basically takes your assets and modifies them. And the modification there would be moving. So it would be changing the service account specifically. So the service account that asset was previously pointing to will get updated to a different service account. And then you might have to do some cleanup. If you now have an orphaned account that isn't doing anything, maybe you want to remove it or mark it as, disconnected or something like that. You might want to do that as well.
Yeah. And then Prakash has another question, which is subscriptions be assigned to service account or billing account?
So subscriptions are tied to the assets themselves. I don't remember if they have relationships to the account. It's kind of more meant to be a grouping mechanism for different assets. I can double check on that and follow up. Cool. So if
this week, Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Georgie.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just subscription. I think Salesforce, interestingly, has a new product. I think called subscription management this week. I was actually just reading about it yesterday. Unrelated industries market, but I think that it's a new flavor of Sales Cloud called Unlimited Sales Cloud, and it's a part of that. So very powerful product as well.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's a part of Revenue Cloud, which is a separate topic. You may have heard of Salesforce CPQ. There's actually a great SIMA session on exactly that topic. So if you want to deep dive, I'll throw a link in the chat and you can take a look at that. Okay, so I hope that was useful for.
I think there's a bit of a delay. I was just saying that if people have more questions for you, they can put it in the chat, and then we can always come back towards the end. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah. Cool. So I hope that was useful for everyone. If you have any other questions, again, put them in the chat. If you don't, if you're watching the recording, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer. So I will give it to Ashish to explain product lifecycle management. Ashish, do you want me to drive the slides, or do you want to take the screen?
I'll share. All right, let me know when you see my screen.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. So I'll be talking about product lifecycle management today, and because it's a vast topic, I'll touch one part of it, and then rest we'll maybe meet some other day. All right. So I already introduced myself. Forward-looking statement. So I may talk about something which is on the roadmap. I'll try to avoid that. But if I do so, then please make your purchasing decisions based on what's in market today. All right. So as Georgii mentioned earlier, right, we have these three clouds that are grouped together as the CME cloud, right? Communication, media, and energy. So some of the features that you will see today will be only available in media and energy clouds, in the industry clouds, and then these features will not be available in other clouds. But some of the concepts that you will see today related to product lifecycle management, you can apply them to any other industry as well. Okay, so what are we going to discuss today? Let's just have a look at some scenarios, or one scenario that we may get an answer after going through this presentation today. So think about a telecommunication company, like some company in India, Airtel or Vodafone, right? There is a product manager who woke up in the morning and they saw that, okay, their competitor has changed the price of iPhone 13 Pro from, let's say, 1000 USD to 900 USD, right? And now, because of this change, they also need to meet the market expectation, or they need to meet the competition. Otherwise, they are kind of on a risk of losing significant market share, right? So they don't want to wait for long, and they want to make this change in under 4 hours, something like that. Okay. Now, with these kind of changes, there will be no downtime available, because they are not waiting for the whole day, and then in night time they will take a downtime or do something, right? And they can't wait for that long as well. So we'll see how to make this change quickly in the production, and also reduce the risk, right? One of the things that you might be thinking right now is, why not just log into production, go to the product, change the price, and it's done, right? It is similar to what we do with our other Salesforce metadata. We don't change the Apex classes directly in production because of the associated risk in this, right? And that's the same thing we do for product related changes as well. So we'll go through that in more detail, but let's just.
Yeah, Ashish, just a quick request. Like, I think your screen is a little bit small. Can you put it in full screen if possible?
Okay. Let me share again. Okay, give me 1 second.
It's still readable, but I think it will be better.
Now?
Much better, yeah.
Better? Okay, all right. Okay, so let's start with the definition of what a product is, right? So in a CRM language, what a product is. So a product could be a physical product, like iPhone 13 Pro. It is a physical product. It has some features in it, but it could be a service plan as well, or something which can be defined as a service. where if you see a telecommunication service plan, it could have some data in it, it could have some voice minutes in it, some SMSs, some roaming, and all of that bundled together could be a service plan as well, right? And both of them will be defined as product in the CRM and specifically in industry cloud, right? So if I talk about industry cloud, then let's see iPhone 13 Pro, how I will define this in industry cloud. So I'll create iPhone 13 Pro as a product, but then there are a lot many other things related to that product, and that I need to define somewhere. So in Industry Cloud, we have attributes and pick list values that defines what are the options available for that particular product. So if my product is available in 5 different colors, then those 5 different colors are defined as pick list values, and the attributes like color, capacity, they are created as attributes. So these are different objects in Industry Cloud. So I create product as iPhone 13 Pro, then I create attributes as color and capacity, then I create pick lists of color and capacity and associate them with the attributes. So my colors become 5 options, my capacity comes in 4 options, and then when I add this product to CPQ, the user will get an option to select the configuration here. With that, there will be some price list entries associated with the product. So if I want to sell my product for $1,296, then I'll create a price list entry for $1,296. And there are more complications and more details as well that we can add. Like there could be different price lists associated with a certain product. I can sell my product for, let's say, in the northern region for 1296, but in the southern region, maybe it is $1,300, something like that. So there could be those kind of configurations we can do. And then the attribute combinations that we have seen, like 512 GB will be more expensive than 28 GB, right? So those kind of attribute based pricing I need to create, and then that I do in attribute based pricing matrices that are also out of the box feature of Communications Cloud. And then there are a few more add-on features, like if I want to sell some kind of warranty for my product, right? Then I define that as an add-on. And add-ons, there are a few different ways of defining these add-ons, but a simplest way of defining it as you can create a child product, right? And in the child product, either you can select that child product or not select that child product. If you select that, then we'll add some price of that product. So if here you can see that there's a product plan. If customer does not select that, there is no price added for that. But if the customer selects that, we add the price for that as well. After that, there are a few images or maybe product description, some files that you can associate with the product as attachments. And then if you have certain promotions or discounts associated with the product, like if you are selling it for, let's say, $100 less today, right, then you will have a discount available. If you are selling it for some promotions, you can create those discounts and promotions, and these are different objects in Industry Cloud, and you can just associate with the existing product, and they will change the price of the product on the runtime. And then you can add your product to certain catalogs, and these catalogs will drive where the products will be visible. So you can add the product to Apple catalog, or you can add this product to Apple catalog and electronics catalog, and then a handset catalog and those kind of things. And when you bring up those catalogs, the product will be visible there. And then if you want to go into a little more detail, you can add some eligibility and compatibility rules that my product should only be available, let's say, in Rajasthan, right? So you will have a rule that when the order is created, check the customer's location. If it is Rajasthan, make the product available. Otherwise, don't make it available, right? So those kind of rules as well you can add. So now all of these things defines that the product changes may not be that simple as it feels like we can go in production and change something. If things go wrong there, then there could be big problems and your CPQ will not be working as expected, basically. So that's why it is not recommended to go into production and change your products directly there. Similar to any other development, you make these changes in a dev sandbox and then move them through testing and then into the production. Okay, so now coming to our real topic today, what is a product lifecycle? Right, so there are 5 stages of a product lifecycle. Okay, it starts with the ideation, where the marketing team conceptualizes a particular product based on their market analysis, the competition, and what in which direction their company wants to go. Based on all this analysis, they come up with a particular product that, okay, let's sell this kind of thing. Okay, it may be a service plan or a new kind of bundle or something, right? With all that, they come up with a product specification sheet, and that specification sheet is given to the product admins. And these product admins are kind of familiar with the Communications Cloud EPC features. Basically, they know how to create the products, right? So they pick up those specification sheet and then they start configuring the product. Once the configuration is done, which is not that straightforward, I'll say, because you need to understand how to create the model, or how to model your product. And once that is known, then configuration direct in the system is not complicated. You can easily create products in the industry cloud or communications cloud. I'll show you a glimpse of that today. And once the product configuration is done, you test it a little bit and then launch it in the production. That launching is basically deploying your product from your sandboxes to higher environment and then ultimately in production. Once the product reaches the production, that's not the end of the story. That's where the whole lifecycle management starts basically, and that is what we call a BAU, or business as usual lifecycle management, right? In there are a few changes that happens on a particular product, and I'll give you some examples of that. But some of them you can consider that a product may require new kind of discounts, or it may be end of life, or it may have certain new features added, or it may have certain new add-ons added, right? And those kind of things keep on happening with the products, and they generally do not finish as they started basically. And that's why this life cycle or change management is important. And then after a few years, maybe the product is being replaced, and that's where we ended the product and the product retires, and all the learnings from that product goes into addition of the next product, and then this life cycle starts again. Okay, so all this thing, it is a big topic actually. In ideation and product configuration itself, we can do a separate presentation, but today we are not going to focus on how do we ideate a product or how do we do product configuration in industry cloud. Today we'll focus on these last three parts. What is the best way of managing the change? What are the changes involved in a particular product lifecycle, and then how do we make those changes in production faster? And that's why this presentation is more focused on a BAU lifecycle change. Okay, so let's understand what is a simple release cycle, right? As we all know, this every development starts from a dev sandbox, right? So you start developing there. Once your story is kind of complete, you move it to functional test environment. You test it there. When the testing is completed, you move it to a integration test. Then you move it to a UAT sandbox. When everything is fine, you move to a pre-prod environment, which is a staging kind of environment, and then you deploy it to production, right? And all this, generally you know that it takes you a sprint or so, and if it is a kind of a big story, you may not go in production in every sprint, so it may take a month or so or more than that, right? So that's how you do your development. In same way, the EPC or the product lifecycle changes are also made. There is a sandbox which I'm calling EPC Golden right now. I'll talk about that in detail right now, but just consider that there is some product development environment that is called EPC Golden, which is a Dev Pro sandbox. And why Dev Pro? We generally do not use a developer sandbox because there's only 200 MB of data there, and half of it is already taken by other objects. So you have very less space available for product related changes. And the product, as you have seen, product is not just a product object. It includes a product attribute, object types, and then pick list values, attachments, and many other things. And 100 MB is not enough for the whole product catalog. Unless you have only 3 or 4 products, then it's fine. Otherwise, it's not enough. And over time, we keep EPC Golden as constant, and I'll talk about that as well later. But consider that this stays as one single constant sandbox that we do not change or refresh regularly. And that's why the data gets accumulated over time. And it is advised that you at least use a Dev Pro sandbox for this. Okay, so similar to the any other development of Salesforce, the EPC development also starts from a sandbox and then goes through the whole testing cycle, right? Now, think about the question that I asked you to start with, that what kind of methodology the product manager will use if they want to make a quick change, right? Can they wait for 2 to 3 weeks or more than a month to make a simple change, like changing price of the product, where they are crunched with the time and they don't have time because the competitor has already reduced the price, right? If they want to introduce a discount or they want to retire a product, should they wait for a month or at least 2 weeks to make that change? And the answer is actually no, right? So how that change should be made, basically, that's what we will see. So if I talk about complete lifecycle changes, few more, not only those three, then what are those changes that we may do on the product side? So first set of changes are related to making the product available, right? So I can do my product, I can add the product to some catalog, I can remove the product from certain catalogs, or I can add some rules to the catalog product that, okay, make it unavailable in certain locations, or maybe some other rules that make this product only available when someone is buying some other product and something like that, right? Or I can make the product retire as well. It will end of life if I ended that. Or I can make some pricing related changes, like I can introduce new discount, I can introduce new promotions, I can change price of the product, I can change attribute based pricing of the product, I can change the whole logic of the pricing, where how you are calculating your monthly price, that is also changed, right? These kind of changes are also possible. And then some new changes where I am introducing some new pick list values, like my product is now available in 2 TB as well, so I can provide more options to the users. A new charger add-on is added, or I do not provide any more product plans, so I can remove that add-on, right? So all these changes are possible for a particular product in the life cycle of the product. And not just that, if I am introducing a new product, let's say it is iPhone 14, right? So my business will not wait for another month to introduce iPhone 14, because they already have iPhone 13 Pro in the market, and iPhone 14 is not different from iPhone 13 Pro from a selling point of view. It is just another kind of configuration of the product, but actually the whole selling process remains the same. So that is also possible, that I can introduce a new product on the existing pattern. But then there is another pattern, which is a new product on a new pattern, where I've never sold security cameras and now I want to sell security cameras, right? So I need to do more configuration in the system, maybe new template, which is called object type in the system, need to be defined, and then the CPQ need to understand this product, orchestration need to understand this product, and if there's any subscription associated with that, then the whole order management needs to be created for that particular product, right? So all of these things uh, introduce a certain type of risk, basically. So whatever we discussed, all these changes, we need to do some kind of analysis to understand what kind of risk they pose. So if I create a risk scale and associate each one of these type of changes, that whatever we discussed, and understand what is the impact of each one of these changes, does it impact one product, one catalog, or the whole catalog, right? Then what is the likelihood of making a mistake while making that change, right? Is it a simple change? Does that change introduces more risk than other changes? Then what are the number of test cases associated with each one of these changes? Do I need to run one test case or 10 test cases? And what is the complexity of those test cases, right? So you will give a rating based on each one of these four parameters, and then create a risk scale from low to high, and those each one of those changes that we just discussed, you will put them on the scale somewhere, right? So simple changes like product end of life will go on the lower side of the scale, but something like new product on the new pattern, which, like, I never sold security cameras and I'm trying to do that now, goes on the higher scale, higher side of the scale. And changing the pricing logic, adding new child products, all of these goes on the higher side of the scale. Then whatever goes on the lower side can be called as a BAU, product lifecycle change, or business as usual change, where the business is making those changes and they can make these changes themselves, because these changes are simpler changes and more frequent changes. But on the right hand side, there are functional changes that are more complicated and uh, should be taken through the full testing journey. So whatever goes on the left hand side becomes my these changes that goes from the EPC Golden directly to the pre-prod environment. Basically, what I'm trying to portray here is that you don't need a full cycle of EPC Golden to functional test to SIT to UAT and then go to pre-prod and production, because these changes are simpler and you make them very often. So just make those changes in EPC Golden and put them in pre-prod environment. Okay, test them there, do a simple validation test, and then put them in production. But changes that are functional changes require more testing, move them from the full testing cycle, and then go into production like that. So in this way, you can identify what changes up you can make in production daily or few times daily. And this is some process that we are setting up for some of our customer right now, where the most of the customers generally don't care about the BA lifecycle changes, but one of our customers is actually more involved in business changes. Basically, they don't want IT to get involved in the daily day-to-day changes, and that's why this is the process we are setting up for them, that from EPC directly go to pre-prod and make those changes quickly. Basically, on click of a button, go onto the staging environment and then into the production environment. But for more complicated changes, go from EPC to functional test and then the full cycle, and then go into production. So if we go back to our use case that we started with, that someone wants to make that $1,000 to $900 change in production in maybe 4 hours or less than that, then how will they do that, right? So let's see how the process will look like. So let's say the product manager creates a Jira story, says, okay, I want to reduce the price of the product to $900. Once they assign the story to the product admin goes into the EPC Golden, goes to the product and updates the price of the product and changes it to $900. Then they deploy the product to pre-prod using the source control. And once the product is deployed, they associate or assign the story back to the product manager. The product manager logs into the pre-prod, tests the product there. Once the product is tested successfully, which is a small change, it doesn't take very long to test, they assign the user story back to the product admin. The product admin then assigns the story to a DevOps engineer with some whatever notes they want, and then the DevOps engineer logs into source control and performs the production deployment, and then the product is deployed to the production with the new price, right? This whole process, if done carefully, will not take more than an hour or so, and the changes will be there in production with almost no risk, because we already defined that this is a low risk change. And uh, the reason we are doing this is basically we want to bifurcate all the changes from that 2 weeks or more than 2 week cycle to a daily cycle. Basically, we don't want to wait for a sprint to end for every change to go into production. So to do these kind of changes, I'll show you some things that or features that are helpful in Industry Cloud right now. And these features I have divided into or four type of features. Basically, first is your configuration. Let's start with that first. So we have something called Product Designer in Communications Cloud. This Product Designer is a Salesforce Lightning screen only, basically, and it is a collection of all the product related features. So you will have your attributes, product structure, attachments, order management, or decomposition and pricing related changes all in one screen. So what you are seeing right now, it is a product structure where you have this is the parent product and it is associated with some child products, and then the complete hierarchy of that is displayed here. And similar to that, you will have other areas as well where you can associate the pricing. And I have not created screenshots of everything, but then if you go into attributes, you'll be able to see the other features like color and storage and those things, everything. And in the fulfillment, you'll be able to see order management related things where the product is related to technical products and how the decomposition orchestration of that product will happen. So that is the configuration of the changes. This is called Product Designer. If you have access to any Vlocity demo, go to the product to see all these features together. Then the second part of this is controlling the change. So it's kind of optional right now, because before making a certain change, you don't need to version, but because we have introduced this in last few releases, this becomes kind of a very useful feature where if you don't want to kind of mess up your own configuration, you can create a new version of your product and then start working on the product. So in this way, you are controlling your change. It's not that once you have made the change, it is done and now you cannot revert back. So if you are on version 1, you can create a version 2, work on version 2, deploy that to production. Next time when you want to make a change, create a version 3 and keep on going. The only thing that you need to understand is product versioning is linear, where you create one version, create another version, and then the previous version will not be active and the new version will be active. So at one time, only one version will be active, which is a little different from how we do a software versioning, right? And then the product versioning right now is a new feature which is only supported in object types, product, and pick list. But in future, we are expecting to add more objects there as well. Third part of it is projects, which is important from a BAU lifecycle management point of view. So projects are, uh, you can consider them as a container of the changes. So a product admin, if they make a change, then the change automatically gets logged in the project as project item. So if I am a product admin, I make a certain change and I don't remember that I made that change, still it will be available in the project item and I will be able to see that, okay, I made that change. If I don't want to deploy that to production or any next environments, I can just get rid of that and not deploy there, right? So project and project items is simply a collection of whatever changes a product admin is making, and these are getting automatically logged under project as project items. Now, project and project items are not just two objects that are sitting there. They are actually intelligent objects where IDX, which is industry's deployment tool. I'll go to the next slide and show you more details about that. But basically, IDX is a tool given by Communications Cloud that can deploy the project and project items. And it's not just project and project item, it can deploy any other entity as well, which is related to Velocity or Communications Cloud. So it can deploy your Omni Studio related entities like Omni scripts, integration procedures, data raptors, integration procedures, and then products and anything related to product. And the project and project items are just collection of your product related changes. So IDX understands the projects and project items. So if you select a project, it understands that there are 10 products under it, and then it deploys all the 10 products together to the next environment. So the only thing tricky here is that you cannot select that I just want to deploy attribute related change of the product to the next environment, because once it understands that a change has been made to a product, it deploys the whole product together and not just a simple change of that single change of the product. Talking more about IDX, IDX is basically based on a command line tool that was available with Velocity, that was called VBT, Velocity Build Tool, that is renamed as Industry Build Tool now. And it is created because Velocity objects or Velocity functionality is based on the on objects rather than a simple metadata like Salesforce. So these objects are take an example of product 2. So product 2, if you see this slide, product 2 is not just product object. It is a product 2 with price book, entry, attributes, child items, product relationship, and eligibilities, availabilities, and all of that, right? So if I deploy them one by one, then I will lose all the relationship between these objects. And in absence of that relationship, there will be no meaning of the product itself, basically. So what IDX does is it understands the relationship between these all these objects, and then it creates a data pack and then deploys all that together. And this particular feature is not just related to product 2 or product. It is kind of used across all, basically omniscripts and data raptors and everything, basically, where it understands the relationship between objects and then deploys them together. So I think I already discussed this. Yeah. So in IDX, basically what you do is you select a source, you select a target, define a project, select something in the project, and then click deploy, and it fetches from the source and deploys to the target. So this comes with the Communications Cloud as a package. It's not a separate product. So behind the scenes, just a simple thing, basically. So in Salesforce, everything is uniquely identified as a Salesforce record ID. But product-related objects, generally we don't use Salesforce record IDs, because once I deploy my product from one environment to other, or one sandbox to other sandbox, the record ID will change. But my products are actually linked with each other, or my parent product or child product or parent product or attributes, these are all linked together. And when the record ID changes, they won't be able to understand the relationship. So that's why Velocity has introduced something called global key. Each one of these EPC object has a field called global key. And this global key is a 128-bit hash key, which is automatically generated when the product is created. And then when the product is deployed, this global key gets deployed automatically with the product. And that's where Velocity understands that what is the relationship of one particular record with other record. And that's how it keeps it all together. And due to this global key concept, it is recommended that we keep one single golden copy of the EPC, so that all our global keys are getting generated in one single place. And from here, you are deploying them to all the different places. So everything stays in consistency, basically. If you create your products in 10 different environments, or if you have 3 or 4 sandboxes where you are developing the products, then there may be some situations where you will see the global key conflict, and then the deployment will also become trickier. So that's why few reasons to have a EPC golden is: one, your global keys becomes consistent. Second, you need a bit more space. That's why Dev Pro or maybe a partial copy or full copy is also good for that. And also then in EPC golden, you can easily access control the access of the users, who can have access to the product data and who cannot have access to the product data. So that's why EPC Golden is a good way of going with the product and related changes. Now, how long we have? Okay, I think we are already over. So I'll not go in a demo right now, but any more questions we can take up. This is just an example of a global key, where global key is generated with every EPC object, and it is a hash key like this. So there was a demo, but I think there's no time for this. I'll just skip it maybe for now. Any questions, we can take it up now.
Ashish, if you want, you can actually play the demo. I think I would love to see it
Okay,
personally, and
should
I think
we?
it's only 4 minutes.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think let's do it.
yeah. All right. Let me increase it a bit. And all right, let's go through this. Okay, so what we are trying to show, and this is the demo we showed in the DX as well. So this is a recorded demo. So what we are showing here is that same example, that I have a product with $1,000 price, and I want to deploy it to some environment where I want to first make the change and then deploy the product with $900 price. Okay, and we just want to show what are the tools available here, right? So if you see here, what I'm showing here is the product designer. So this is a product, and all these tabs are product designer. Basically, I can go to pricing tab and see pricing of the product. Structure will show me the structure of the product. Attachment will show me the images, videos associated with that, and then fulfillment will show me the decomposition and auto management related features of the product, and then attributes are those storage and color, those kind of things in the product. So our changes right now, what in this example are related to the pricing. So what we'll do is we'll change this price here. So what we are showing here is first is the demo 1 org, and then the second is demo 2 org. And in this demo 2 org, we are showing here that the price of the iPhone X is $1,000 right now. Okay, so this is the target environment where we have $1,000, and you can consider this as your production basically, that it has $1,000 price. Sorry, give me one sec. I clicked something, I think. All right. So what we are doing here is right now, first thing is this $1,000, we need to end it. Okay, because this price is no more valid. So we'll end it the $1,000 price, and then we'll create a new price list entry that we are doing right now. So this is a new price list entry for $900, and there's no end date right now because this is just a new price. We'll end it when we are finishing the price, and now the price change has been made. So now the IDX comes in picture. So this is how IDX looks like. Okay, so you will have a source org, a target org, and then you create a project. In the project, you will go and select the change you have made. So we'll see that now. Yeah, so this is IDX, right? Here, it's not just for product deployment. You can select anything here, anything related to Vlocity and few things related to Salesforce as well. It lets you deploy all of that, okay? So you can search, select what you want to deploy, search with some names, and then it will be displayed here. You can just move the arrows and it will come on the right-hand side. And when you save, that thing is selected for deployment. Okay, so now it is retrieving the data from my source org, and once it is retrieved, yeah, so now it is retrieved, it is showing you the diff as well, that what was the old value, what is the new value. So now because of new price entries here, you can see that as green. And once we have checked our changes, we can click migrate, and now it starts migrating the change from your source org to the target org. And the good thing about this is it maintains the relationship using the global key. So it knows what's under this product, what are the attributes, what are the child products, and what are the pricing and everything. So it is maintaining all of that automatically in it. Okay, so now we see this is the your production environment, you can say, and you have $900 available here right away after deployment. So just one more thing I think we'll show here, that you need to run a job to refresh the cache. And once the cache is refreshed, then you can go into the Omni script again and the CPQ again, basically, and you will be able to see the new price of $900. Yeah, so in this demo, basically, we saw two things, basically. One is product designer, how to make the change in the product designer. And second is how to deploy that change simply using IDX, and how IDX understands the things automatically. So Gaurav, back to you now. Hope I didn't take very long.
No, I think this was good, and I think this is content which is not easily available. So thank you, and let's quickly walk through the questions. So one question was from, I think, couple of questions. Yeah, a couple of questions were from Krishnan and Dinesh, which I think I tried to answer. How are we deploying data using DevOps? Which DevOps tool do you use? It's IDX, is that correct?
Yeah, so IDX is there. It is kind of with the communications cloud package, but then there are few other tools like Copado, AutoRabbit, right? These tools also understands velocity actually. So you'll be able to deploy velocity related changes with them as well. And if you're not using any one of them, then you can just use command line tool, velocity build tool, and you'll be able to deploy the code or product related or any changes related to the communications cloud.
There's a question from Krishnan. Does IDX tool automatically add any new relationship added to the product to object?
It does. So what it will do is it will deploy the whole product basically. Okay, so if you have added anything new, it will automatically fetch that your product has got 3 new child items. It will automatically fetch that and deploy.
Okay. There was a question which I added, which I think I was not very clear. So for product versioning, is it possible to roll back to an earlier version? What if a product is related to other products in the latest version and those relationships did not exist in the previous version? So would that be allowed? And like, how will it impact the data model?
So come again, I got confused. So you're saying you want to revert? See, you can revert to the previous version because the previous version exists, and you can go and activate that version. So that is possible. What you're saying? What was the conflict situation? Come again.
Yeah, the situation is like in the latest version, like you product had relationships with certain other products, but you basically moved that product to a previous version and those relationships do not exist on that product object. So what will happen to the data model? Will it check for those relationships and not allow that moving to the earlier version, or what will happen in this case?
Okay. So see, let's say you have a version A and version B. Now in version B, which is the latest version, you added some relationships, and now you're going back to version A where you don't have that relationship, right?
Yes.
So if you have any orders open or any assets created with version B, then they will still be linked with your existing version only.
Okay.
But I can double check because that may be a complicated situation. So I need to check actually what will happen in those situations. I can come back on that by testing it basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question from Ankur. Any way to fix global keys if some change structure in higher environment directly? Not sure I understood the
It
question.
is not recommended to manually go and change global keys because they are generated automatically. So you need to understand why your conflict is happening, and then maybe choose one of the source environments basically, and not let that conflict happen basically. Don't change them manually. That's the thing.
Okay. There's one more question from Krishnan. When we do migration using IDX, can we define chunk size as well for the migration?
For what?
I think the question is
No, so you don't need to define any chunk size or anything. You just need to select your products and it will start deploying. If you have selected, let's say, many products together, like 50 products or something like that, it will still deploy, but it will take very long. It will keep on deploying slowly.
okay. Got it. I think that's the last question. Oh no, actually, there's one more. So uh, there is a question from Chirag. Basically, industry cloud is data driven, where global keys act as API name, as in metadata. How is the creation of new objects handled? You can
Creation
read
of
it
new
out. Last
object on what?
last question in the chat. Yeah,
Give me one second.
last question. You want to
Okay.
stop sharing?
Okay.
You can
So
do that.
see, creation. Yeah. See, creation of new object, you can do that, and we have done at one of our latest project actually, where we created a new object related to the product. Okay, but you will not have any global key or anything like that there because you are custom creating that object, right? So you need to have some kind of key where you can link your new object with your product. So I can give you an example what we just did. We created a custom object called SKU number. Okay, so one product may have, let's say, it represents 50 SKUs, like RAD 128 gig is one SKU, RAD 256 gig is another SKU, and then keep on going like that. And if all the combinations, each combination is a new SKU. So we created a custom object to define that, okay, product P001, color, RAD, storage, this is SKU number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that whole object exists for that purpose only. Now, the problem was that when I deploy my product, how do I deploy all these changes together with that, right? That was the problem. And what we did, we created a custom way of deploying it. Basically, we extended the product deployment by introducing a S object related query, where with every deployment, we were doing a query on this object, new custom object, and searching with the product code, and whatever rows were coming up, then we deploy all those rows in the target environment. So that's how we did it. So we didn't create new global keys for that because our use case was not that complicated. But yeah, you may choose to create global keys as well if it suits you.
Okay. There's one more question which I actually want to ask because nobody asked, and that is actually to both of you and whoever wants to take it. So, for example, I think we covered CME, like communication media, in the earlier part. Like, I understand there is a credential for that, which is communications order management developer. So, what would be a good way to like prepare for that credential? Like, what is a learning path like? And whoever wants to answer.
Maybe I can take this one. Is this the Vlocity University exam?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took that one a few months back, probably towards the beginning of the year. I would say my recommendation is to go to Vlocity University. So I put a link in the chat of how you can get access to Vlocity University if you don't have access yet. As long as you're a Salesforce customer or partner, you can request access. It's free. You go to Vlocity University. There's a course for order management. I think if you go through the course, do the hands-on exercises, and also go through the Vlocity Success Community documentation about order management, you should have no problem passing.
Okay.
So I would say the key thing is like the hands-on exercises. Just make sure you do those.
Yeah, I agree. And there's one more question, which I think is, again, I think either of you can answer. I think it's for Ashish by Harish. For a Salesforce CPQ application, can we use EPC as a place where products can be stored?
Yeah. So EPC is the place where you store the products. Actually, this is the place. EPC is Enterprise Product Catalog, and that's where you create and store your products. So yes.
Okay, I think we'll kind of put an end to the questions there because I think it's almost midnight for Ashish. He's in Melbourne. But thank you, everybody. And now let's move to the fun part, which is the Kahoot quiz. And as I said, we'll have certification vouchers as prizes for the top 3 winners. Georgii and Ashish, if you want to hang around, you're welcome to do that. I know that it's late for both of you, so it's entirely up to you. But thank you once again.
I really want to see who the winner is. And Gaurav, I just have one more thing. So if folks are interested in learning more about Communications Cloud, Omni Studio, or any of the other industry clouds, I'm about to put a bunch of links into the chat. Just take a look at those. There are some nice videos, trailheads, etc. Yeah, just look at those if you want to learn more. That was it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll do is, I think the links that you shared earlier as well, I'll collate everything in a single message, and then I will send it out to all the group members in an email as well. All right, awesome. To the fun part now. So if you have a smartphone, take it out, and I'll just set up the quiz quickly, and then we'll get started. So it's on Kahoot, and I think most people who attend these events are familiar with Kahoot. And by the way, Georgii just posted a bunch of information in the chat. You might want to copy it, and then we will go to the quiz shortly. So go to a URL called kahoot.it in your browser. Can someone confirm if they can also hear the background music or if they just hear me? No background music. Let me try. Just the background music. What makes it in.
Oh, Gaurav, we lost your audio. I think you're on mute.
I was just trying to get the music back, and I think it took my audio. So, okay, I'll just provide the Kahoot pin as well. So, just a second. I'll start sharing my screen. Just a moment. All right. So, on the screen, you should be seeing the Kahoot pin, and please make sure to use a username which I can identify you with. And because there are certification vouchers at stake, and I think we had close to 52 people at one point of time, which for a Friday evening is really good. And there are 43 people still around who want the certification voucher. And thank you, Georgii, for posting the pin in the chat. So I think out of 43, obviously Ashish and Georgii are not allowed to participate, and I'm not allowed to participate. So we'll wait till we get about 35 people, and then I'll start the quiz. So if this is your first time, then it's a little bit like fastest fingers first. There will be a series of questions, and we have thrown in some fun questions there as well. You need to answer the question, and you need to answer it fast before the others do. And yeah, whoever answers right and the fastest gets the most number of points. And I think we have a good number, so we'll get started now. So question number 1 coming your way. And most of the questions are based on what we covered in the session. What 3 industries are grouped together? People are answering quickly, so I think you get the hang of how it works. Yeah, most of you got it right. It's communication, media, and energy. And the best part is that the leaderboard pretty much changes on every question. So even if you're not on top of the leaderboard, just keep going, and you'll see that. Why should we not use why should we or not use person accounts in these industries? Georgii did cover that in his session. So if you were listening carefully, you would be able to answer this. Okay, most of you got it right. It does not support account hierarchies. There was specifically a slide related to this. So as I said, yeah, the leaderboard will keep changing on a regular basis. Like it's pretty much changed. Samruddhi on top, then Prakash, Ankur, Krishnan, Dinesh. Question number 3, trick question. Dreamforce is in which month? Nothing related to industries. But this is a Salesforce event, and yeah, most of you got it right. It's in September. Let's look at the leaderboard. Yeah, Prakash on top, Dinesh, Krishnan, Ankur, and Samriddhi. Let's go to question number 4. How can we represent multiple pairs for a given customer? This was covered as well. Okay, let's see. So a little bit of a change on the leaderboard. How can we link a B2B customer and a B2C customer? Yeah, most of you again got it right. So again, some changes: Ankur, Samruddhi, Dinesh, Krishnan, Shubham, and Mahadev is the highest climber. And as I said, this changes with every question. How many Salesforce certificates or certifications does Georgii have?
This is the most important topic from this session. I hope everyone gets this right.
is 36. And Georgii, when are you adding to this list? Have you done the strategy designer one already?
I did. I need a B2B and B2C solution architect. So soon, I hope.
That's where I'm slightly ahead of you. But interesting trivia, like can anyone point out who's the most certified credential, who's the most certified person in the Salesforce ecosystem? I'll give you a hint. It's not Georgii, it's not me. I would love to see some answers if anyone knows that, and I'll come back to the chat later.
Not yet, Gaurav. Not yet.
No, it's somebody like even I found out recently, and he's not very. So there's an answer. Yeah, I think Dinesh got it right. So it's a person who works with Salesforce Singapore, and he's a short nickname. I think you call him CK, or I don't know. Georgii might know him, but I'll post a link to his
CY,
LinkedIn.
yeah.
Yeah, CY. Yeah. Very impressive. Like I think he has most of the AP credentials, most of the certifications. Very very humble person. In fact, I reach out to him for guidance a lot. So yeah. Okay. So let's look at the leaderboard. Dinesh on top, Krishnan, Ankur, Samruddhi, Shubham Agarwal, and Dinesh is actually a person who's always encouraging people on LinkedIn and social media in terms of sharing his knowledge. Dinesh, I'll request you if you can put in a link to your blog post. Please do subscribe and do read his posts. I find them very inspirational, and I'm sure you'll do that as well. Okay, moving on. Next question. What type of sandbox is not recommended to be used as an EPC golden sandbox? Yeah, this was covered by Ashish. Yep, developer sandbox it is. Let's look at the leaderboard. So Dinesh, Krishnan, Ankur, Samruddhi. Not a lot of difference, and Nitin is back in the game as well. Changes made by product administrators can be tracked with what? Yeah, Ashish just answered a question on this as well. So project items. Okay, Samruddhi, Nitin, Dinesh, Akash, and Akash is a new one on the leaderboard. And then there is Krishnan. This is an easy one, a true or false. Just read it carefully and then. Okay, if you got it right. Okay, Akash, Ankur, Samruddhi, Nitin, Dinesh. And let's move on to the next question. Why is it considered a best practice to have a EPC golden sandbox? Okay, let's see how many of us got it right. So Ankur, Samruddhi, Nitin, Akash, Prakash. Question 11, where is Ashish originally from? So if you attended the early part of this session, then you might have an advantage to answer this one. Yep, he's from Jaipur, and he's also promised that the next time he's in town, he will present to this group in person as well, and we will definitely look forward to that. Okay, so not much change on the leaderboard. We have Krishnan who's moved up, and Harish has an answer streak of 3. Which of these is not a cloud platform? Again, just to break the monotony. Nothing related to industries. I'm glad that most of you got it right. VB is a legacy desktop platform, which I think a lot of people of my age have worked on. So Samruddhi, Ankur, Nitin, Akash, Krishnan, we are down to the last two questions. Which of these is the latest launched Salesforce cert? Read the options very carefully.
This is a tricky one.
It is, yes. It's a trick question. So whoever answered it early likely answered it wrong. Oh, interestingly, most of you got it right. It is the Salesforce Certified Business Analyst, which has been announced. It has been launched, but it's not available yet. It's available starting 11th July. There is a Certified Strategy Designer certification, but that's not in the options. That is the exam which is available. Okay, so let's see if this changes anything. Ankur, Nitin, Akash, Samruddhi, Harish, and this is the last question. So this can make or break everything, and all five of you are in the hunt. So let's go for it. Which of these is the latest Salesforce acquisition?
Wow, that's a really big acquisition there.
Yeah, so it is Traction on Demand. It's a company which Salesforce acquired for professional services. Interestingly, they have an office in Jaipur where I'm based. Acumen was acquired a little bit earlier than Traction on Demand. Informatica is an investment from Salesforce Ventures, and Microsoft, not yet, but hopefully someday it may happen. So let's look at who our winners are. So these are our winners. First place, Ankur. Second place, Nitin. Third place, Akash. So if all three of you, I'll just take a screenshot of this. And if all three of you could drop me an email or a message, and then I will make sure that we connect you to the Salesforce team and you get your certification vouchers. So I'll stop sharing now. Before we wrap it up, any parting words from you, Georgii or Ashish?
Yeah, maybe I can just say a couple sentences. So for those of you that aren't working with Industry Cloud, I hope that this session kind of highlighted a few of the interesting things. Like in my session, we talked about data modeling, and Ashish's session, we talked about products and DevOps. I hope that sparked some interest for you. If you ever get the opportunity to work on industry